All right, this is perspective, 1 point perspective. I'm going to start off here in Photoshop, give myself kind of a wide canvas. This is an establishing shot that I'm going to use as an example in class. So I'm going to start off with obviously the horizon line. I'm going to pick my point of perspective on my horizon line. So all of the lines that are the surface facing us are going to be horizontal and vertical, and all the lines that are going back are going to meet at that 1 point perspective. So you can see I'm drawing kind of the basic shapes of the building, the basic shapes of that car. There's a silo I kind of build. I build that all off that 1 point perspective in the background, kind of going back. So the first thing I do is I block it out really rough like this. And then I'm going to go in and kind of clean it up as I go. So it's just basically a process of kind of finding the line, finding your shapes basically to begin with, building those shapes one on top of another. So kind of the tricky thing about perspective is building those kind of circles in perspective are difficult. So generally speaking, I try and start off with building the squares first in perspective and then building the circles on top. This is kind of a goofy little thing. So I gave this as an assignment to my students to do kind of a Victorian inspired background. So and I kind of simplified it for this. I did a trailer park. So I'm just kind of at this point I'm just kind of adding detail. I'm throwing down some color really quick, or some just to get an idea of what the final thing is going to look like. This is only going to be a black and white piece that I'm doing right here. And you can see it's really rough, and then I'm just going to kind of refine it as I go. Photoshop's kind of nice where I can just kind of clean it up as I go, add a little white, add some detail. So once I get those basic shapes in, then I have an opportunity to go in and kind of refine those rough shapes. But I generally don't do that until I'm happy with my composition and I'm happy with placement of things, because that can obviously change, and you want to change it early. You want to be able to do that early so that you're not spending a lot of time on the cleanup when your rough isn't necessarily working. So you can see I'm kind of going in there a little bit. I'm adding a little bit of detail. I'm adding some specifics, I guess. I'm trying to, at this point, when I'm refining it, I'm trying to find all the pieces. Like on the boards, and I'm trying to get a little bit of texture in there, so it's not all just flat lines. So again, kind of the cleanup process is about finding some of those specifics, right? So I'm building in a little bit of that perspective a little bit, so it's more of a three-dimensional object rather than just a flat line. And you can see I'm blah 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 blah. So this, you can see when I'm cleaning up, or when I do the next step in the cleanup, I'm adjusting a lot of those lines. So the first time I went through and did all that. So it's a series of kind of correcting mistakes that I made in my rough. And then I added a little road there, and then I'm going to add a little bit of highlights, blah 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 blah. Again, this is going to kind of start off as being it's going to end up being kind of clean rough, I believe. So, I mean, I could add more detail in the background there, kind of a silhouette of a city if I want in the background, but I don't think I did. This is kind of a lonely trailer park on the edge of nowhere. So now I'm going through and again I'm adding some of those highlights, some of those dark areas, that sort of thing. I'm being a little bit more specific about where things are and how I'm going to clean it up. So there's we'll clean up. And again, I'm kind of working more on just rough areas, I guess. I'm not going in with my final line. Here, I think I start going in my final line. So here I'm going in with that final line, and I'm making the final decisions about what it is we're dealing with here. And that's kind of after. And in Photoshop, you can see on my little layers panel, I've done this all on one layer, which is kind of, I probably should have grabbed my cleaned up line and done that on a separate layer just in case I wanted to go in there and affect my color or my texture underneath. So, but this was just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a one-off. It's kind of, I kind of liked the black and white when I was drawing it. I kind of liked the feel of the black and white. So, but like I said, if I was gonna do this again, I would probably separate the color layer, which is my black and white kind of layer, put that on a separate layer. So just in case I wanted to go through there and I wanted to throw in some color on those, that would be nice. And so you see, I've got a really kind of cartoony line here. That's kind of what I'm used to. I think the next one I might do a little bit more realistic, but this was a lot of fun. You can see I'm just kind of going in here. I'm making some decisions here about kind of where things lie, where I want things, and the more specific kind of line work goes in at this point. So, and this whole video, I believe when I recorded it, took me about a little over 2 hours, and so I've condensed it all into about 10 minutes. So you can do the math on that. I'm not exactly sure. I probably should have checked that beforehand, but it's a lot quicker, right? If I could draw this quick, I would be a Superman. So this is obviously very, very sped up, and so at this point, I'm making some decisions just about how I want kind of the final look of it to be. And I would probably change a bunch of this if I had to. The nice thing about keeping it on one layer, as you can see, I kind of go through and I do my line work, and then I can erase some of the miscellaneous stuff that I don't want. So I believe that's why I kind of kept it on one layer. So it's just for just the ease of drawing, I guess. Ooh, look at that. So the nice thing about Photoshop, obviously, is you can kind of go through there. You can edit it. You can take away lines. You can Control Z. You can get out of it. You can get a lot of stuff. So I like doing a lot of my concepting on paper still. But as far as like the actual cleanup and the actual like drawing of stuff, I like this program. It's nice. And you can kind of use whatever program you like. You can do it by hand. You can there's a bunch of different programs out there that allow you to do basically what I'm doing here. So I'm going through and I'm kind of finishing up the final line, and I think I get a little bit rough here. I think I got a little bit sick of drawing at this point. 2 hours isn't too bad for a background. When I was doing it for television, there was I probably did a little bit quicker than this. I'm a little out of practice when it comes to doing kind of final backgrounds, but hopefully this is a 1 point perspective. You can see that. I'm going to probably try and come in here and do a 2 point perspective as well, just to kind of hit all my bases. There's a 1 point, there's 2 point, there's 3 point. There's actually kind of like a 5 point global perspective too, which I might do at some point. But this is a nice kind of starter for perspective. Gives you an idea of how, and a lot of my students get this wrong, where they start off pretty good, but all the lines in a 1 point perspective are vertical. You can see right there where the road is vertical. They're either vertical or horizontal. The side of that building you can see is horizontal. Everything going back to the horizon all goes back to that 1 point of perspective. And so that's a lot of students, a lot of kind of beginners kind of get that wrong, but then I finish out the line. So that's the final thing right there. There's my final composition in black and white in a 1 point perspective. And next time we'll try and do 2 point perspective. Thanks for joining me.